1-0 is hammered out towards left field. It may have the distance looking back at the track, and this ball is gone. Drive home safely, everybody. And just like that, Chris Gallen sends one over the fence in left field as he comes across home plate. He throws the batting helmet, and he jumps on home plate as he is mobbed.
That's the voice of Thomas Zinzarella, a sophomore and aspiring sportscaster, calling a walk-off home run last summer in Cape Cod League action. Thomas is our guest on the Providence College podcast. I'm Joe Carr. Thank you for joining us. So, Thomas, that was an exciting moment last June, a 4-3 Harwich win over Orleans, and you've been around the Cape League for quite a while now. How did this all develop to get you to the point where you're calling play-by-play during the summer?
Well, I grew up, I was on the Cape, you said before, all my summers, so it was quite ironic. I was around the league my whole life with Orleans, and I interned with them. When I was a junior in high school, I got an opportunity to do a game day internship because I knew I wanted to go into sports and baseball, more like the Billy Bean, kind of the Moneyball type of aspect. And so that's why I chose game day operations and got my foot in the door. And I actually met a couple great broadcasters out there in Orleans. And, they put me on for a couple of innings of color commentary. And I said, gee whiz, this is something kind of cool. I'd love to do it. And it kind of took off from there. So when I came into the PC, I was a little optimistic. And I was, still I was a management major, and I was like, still wanted the sports management aspect maybe, and I ended up doing a couple games here, and that's really took off. And then I did a couple hockey games, a couple basketball games, and color commentary. And then I just, I used my connections on the Cape, and I was lucky enough to end up in Harwich. And I can tell you what, I've been around the league my whole life, but there's nothing better than I did 46 games in 52 days, and just following the league the whole summer. There's nothing that beats it. And then I've by accident told a couple, minor league teams, I said, listen, I'm not going to lie, Cape League's the best. And, current MLB players will tell you too, have been on the Cape, managers, anybody will tell you the Cape League, just nothing can beat it. And I can tell you that was one of the best summers of my life. And
you'll be back this coming summer too, right? You've got a gig lined up?
I'll be back up this summer, actually, with Orleans, my hometown team. So definitely excited. I grew up again watching Orleans, do all the coach, manager Kelly Nicholson, the whole crew down there, and a couple returning players as well. So it's going to be a blast. I'm definitely excited.
And by the way, when Thomas talks about broadcasting games here at PC, primarily he's talking about WDOM radio. We'll get back to that in just a couple of minutes. But I'd like you to sort of paint a picture of a Cape Cod League game for us. Tell us what this league is kind of all about, the fan bases, the wooden bats. You paint that picture. Yeah, no, definitely. There's actually a great documentary out as well from Fox Sports that came out last summer, and but it's basically it's high school baseball fields. It brings you back to the olden days. The Cape League is kind of just out there in Massachusetts, and it brings an old time kind of feel, back old USA type of feel, and yeah, just high school baseball fields. I mean, it's a league that's been around for I believe over 100 years, so it's been around there, but it wasn't until I believe the 70s. It was just a local league up until the 70s or 80s when some of the top players in the country started to come up there. So guys like Nomar Garcia-Parra, Mark Teixeira, Brandon Crawford, Marcus Stroman. I mean, the list goes on and on. All-Stars, Frank Thomas, Hall of Famer, a couple Hall of Famers put up there, and a couple PC guys as well. Lou Merlone, John Schiffner, who was the manager for Chatham, all-time winning manager for the Chatham Anglers on the Cape League. And so and the fans as well. I mean, you get people who come around to the Cape every summer. They stop by a game, and it really brings a great feel, especially this summer in Orleans, actually. Some say it's the gem of the Cape because I grew up on the hill. So basically on the first base line, it's just this terraced hill, and it's been there forever, I believe, since they terraced it in like the 60s, and it's just gotten bigger, and they've expanded a little bit too, brought a couple bleachers in, but literally, you get there the day before the game. I used to remember my mom. We drive in there and drop our chairs off. Had to get the front row seats right in front of first base, and because literally the hill will be filled up until game time. We'll have over 1,000 people to watch a summer league game, and it's just the wood bat itself too. It really shows you, and then that's why the scouts come too, because they want to see. Obviously, in college now they use the metal bats, so. They want to see how players can react with the wooden bats and against some of the best prospects in the country, and it's a blast to watch. And definitely, if you've not been up to see a Cape League baseball game, you got to put on your bucket list. If you're a baseball fan or a sports fan, there's nothing that beats it. Pretty tough to beat Cape Cod weather on a nice summer night too, isn't it? Tell us more about the players. So where do they come from, and what do they do the rest of the time on the Cape while they're not playing baseball?
So it's almost like a full-time job for them in a way. Now some of them do. So they're set up with host families, which is a really unique part as well. So they get paired with these host families who, feed them, house them, basically, take care of them. And I've heard some crazy stories. Actually, a buddy of mine, Brandon Crawford, the current shortstop for the Giants, he's a couple Gold Glove time winner, and he housed him and Marcus Stroman. He got a signed bat from Brandon Crawford. So there's nothing better than that. And a cool story as well is that the players, they help with a lot of the teams to help kind of fundraise money as well as they host baseball clinics. So that's where I actually grew up. My interaction with Orleans growing up was through these baseball clinics at the time when Orleans was called the Orleans Cardinals. They're now the Fibers. There's a whole MLB type of fiasco type of thing where they wanted money. But anyway, so I grew up doing these clinics, and a couple of my coaches were Matt Wieters and Brett Cecil. Obviously, Wieters first-round draft pick by the Orioles, and Brett Cecil was a first-round draft pick by the Blue Jays. And crazy stories. Brett Cecil, I'm still really good family friends with him today, and our family's really close. He taught my oldest brother Chris how to pitch. He was my sister's and mine clinic coach, and so as he rose up the ranks of the minor leagues, since he was with the Blue Jays, he's with the New Hampshire Fisher Cats. So being me from Connecticut, go down to New Britain. They're now obviously in Hartford, but New Britain was a AA affiliate as well. So New Hampshire come down, we go see him, and then finally when we went to the major leagues, we got traveled around and followed them throughout. And it's just a story like that. Like you can ask any Cape League host family or something like that. They have a similar story like that, and that's what really the players are about. They really interact with the fans. Like these fans, or some of them are local, some of them are just summer residents, some year-rounders. They really care about the baseball team, and those players, they know they represent not only themselves, but the town, So that's what's really unique about the Cape as well. And it's just the fan interaction, I think, is definitely something you'll experience if you attend one of these games.
So when are the rosters assembled? We're at the beginning of February now. Do you have any idea who will be on the Orleans team this year?
Yeah, it's actually changed quite a bit. So they actually start each head coach and kind of team, they have a connection with a college coach. So, for example, in Orleans, they have a big connection with Vanderbilt, Tim Corbin, the manager down there, whereas in Harwich, Coach Englert, he's a guy that, former Boston College Northeastern guy, so he gets some of the local kids from those schools. So they have these connections with the schools, and then they pull players. So it's changed a bit. As I said before, they literally start trying to sign guys in November-ish, and then they change a little bit as well. And right now, currently, most of the teams, they're almost set. And then what ends up happening was sometimes it changes. Some guys get injured. Some guys, for example, I know a lot of guys, they have a great, let's say, season coming up in the spring, and then they get selected for Team USA for the college team. And some guys, some guys like Andrew Vaughn last year from Cal, he played for Wareham. He was the Golden Spikes Award winner, and he actually was playing on Team USA, but he played 12, 13 games. So a lot of guys will do that as well. So it's always changing the rosters. They are pretty much established. But another cool thing is that beginning of June as well, when a lot of guys are still in the College World Series or playing college baseball, they can't make it out of the Cape, so they bring in a lot of temporary guys. So you start to see some maybe lower D1 guys or D3 guys, even D2 guys. And that's what it just shows you the Cape. It doesn't matter if you're D1, D2, D3. There have been junior college guys who have been lights out pitching, or they've hit for like 350 during a season. I mean, it just shows you it doesn't matter where you come from. If you perform well in the Cape, you're gonna get drafted. So
interesting stuff. So you're a sophomore, as we mentioned, from West Hartford, Connecticut. What brought you to PC?
So I'm actually I'm a third generation Friar here. So my grandfather was a class of '53. My uncle 81, and then my mom was the class of 85, and I'm the youngest of four, youngest of six grandchildren. PC was on my horizon. It wasn't my number one choice at first, because again I was looking sports management, business management, and a couple other schools I was looking at. They really had my eye, and then I got here at the PC for the accepted students day and alumni weekend, since my mom was with me. And Doris Burke was speaking, so it's always, it's a little bit of a joke in a way that Doris Burke kind of persuaded me to come to PC, because when she was speaking here, and I asked a question, and then I went up to her afterwards as well, and I asked her, I told her my story, and she's like, because in her speech she said too, you don't have to go to a Syracuse or Northwestern or any of those type of big schools, and I was like, I was a little conflicted at first. I was like, well, I don't know, and I knew that WDOM was here, and I knew it could get reps right away. My grandfather was very active in the college community as well. And so I know a lot of connections, Bob Driscoll, Steve Napolo guys in the athletic office, and they're kind of trying to push me out into PC. And I definitely finally decided on it. I felt right at home too, the campus community. I knew I could get very active in the community with sports-wise as well. And that's one thing I think it's been the best decision of my life to come to PC.
I remember Doris's talk that day very well, and next thing you know, she's the National Sportscaster of the Year. What an honor, too. What a great thing for PC, and a just tremendous professional, and a real credit to this college for sure in every way. So let's talk a little bit about WDOM and the Big East Digital Network. So these are places where you're working now. You just use the sports term getting reps. I like that. You're getting the opportunity to talk into a live microphone at sporting events. So this is a great way to learn. Detail some of that. What kinds of things are you doing? What are you broadcasting?
So we do basketball, men's basketball, men's hockey right now. Obviously, since we don't have a major, communications or major, we're kind of short-staffed in a way. So there's maybe 3 or 4 of us that do it. And so we do both those games. We do pregame, postgame, during the game. And then one thing we're definitely trying to grow is our presence just on campus and off campus too. I've seen, again, from being on the Cape as well, you learn so much, not only getting the reps in, we did 46 games, as I mentioned, but also you get to pick the brains from other kids. I met kids from Miami, Arizona State, Northwestern, Syracuse, a bunch of Syracuse kids. So, they're doing other stuff there. And, I just pick their brains about, what do you guys do? Like, what kind of things that I would try to implement at PC? And that's what I've tried to bring to WDOM. For example, social media-wise, I'm trying to learn more graphics and, editing audio, video type of things. And that's what I'm also learning upstairs when I work in the athletic office as well, doing stuff like that. And that's what type of stuff we try to do at WDOM. And because of the Cape as well, we're going to the Big East now. It's funny how I got that gig because, I was on Fox Sports this summer for the Cape as you know. And so I got, Nick Rojas in the athletic department. I saw that, he liked it and he started following me on Twitter. And then I just, DM'd him saying, hey, I'm really interested, like if I could work for you as a, I worked at a ticket office my freshman year. And I said, I'd like to, work for you. And he said, I can't pay you, but I said, that's not a problem. I'm used to that. And especially in sports, you just got to be willing to do anything you can. And that's why, now some of you might see me as, This Week in Friartown on PC Athletics Instagram. So that's what I do now in the athletic department. So just doing a bit of everything. And that's how I ended up getting the Big East gig as well. And a lot of guys, John Fan, who works currently right now for the Big East, I did a game with him a couple weeks ago. And he said that's where he started, was doing sideline reporting. I did women's soccer, men's soccer, sideline reporting for the Big East Digital Network on Fox Sports Go. So again, sideline reporting is a little, I try to do some this summer. It's a little out of my reach, but it's definitely something I would love to learn, and I have a lot of fun with it too.
Well, that introduces the camera, right? Yeah. Because that makes it a whole different thing. You have to be prepared to look into a camera and deliver a message. So kind of a different, in some sense, a different set of skills.
Yeah, no, definitely. Especially when I be on TV, play-by-play guy, work for ESPN or Fox Sports, it's one thing that I learned. So I don't mind the camera at all. That I'll shy away from it.
It doesn't sound like you're the type of guy who would be afraid to approach, let's say, a Dave O'Brien or even a Bill Raftery or somebody like that at one of these games. Do you talk to some of these big-time pros who show up, especially for men's basketball?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that's actually my freshman year. I wasn't doing any games, basketball first semester, but, I believe it was the Minnesota game. We ended up losing that game, unfortunately, in the second half. But Bill Raftery and Gus Johnson, that's the crew right there. Those are one of my 2 favorite guys. And, I've grown up with, listening to Bill Raftery, and I was like, I got to get a picture, with the governor, as people call him. So I didn't have a chance to talk with Gus Johnson, but Raftery got a nice picture with. And then Dave O'Brien this year, I know I talked with him after the Holy Cross game this year. And, I even found out his daughter, she works for, I believe, the West Coast Conference now, WCC, and she actually was in Hyannis on the Cape. So again, I always hear it too. We talk about the PC community, but the Cape League, broadcast, people always say it's a little community as well in a way. So it's kind of neat to find out. And even Tim Branda was doing the Villanova game, and I kind of just went out there on Twitter and I just commented to one of his tweets, and the next thing I know, he follows me on Twitter and DMs me saying, hey, we'll love to chat with you. And so that's why, another thing I think I saw with the Big East as well. And, it's a great conference, and I'm a college basketball junkie, and a lot of these guys, they like grew up around it. You think of like Donnie Marshall, Steve Lavins, guys that do color commentary even. And it's a blast. And you can tell they love the game in the way. And the play-by-play guys, too, are awesome. I haven't spoken to a lot of them because this year we haven't gone of a lot of them have been the same. Tim Brando and Dave O'Brien do most of the games now. But that's, Jeff Levering, I know, did the PC game this weekend. He's the Milwaukee Brewers. So that's like another neat way you can network in the Big East as well, is just going to the games, talking to these guys. A lot of these guys, they don't just do Fox Sports, obviously. They're, kind of freelancers in a way. They'll do baseball or some other sport in their off season. So I'm actually signing up to go to the Big East networking event at Madison Square Garden in March. So I'm excited about that as well.
Well, that all sounds great. By the way, there is a bit of a history of people going from WDOM into some sportscasting success. I can think of a couple of examples. John Hennessy, class of 1982, became the voice of the New Jersey Devils during one of their Stanley Cup seasons, and UMass hockey and some other things. And Steve McDonald, who is currently the radio voice of URI basketball and football, both started right at WDOM, and here you go. So there is a pathway certainly to success in the sports broadcasting field. And one of the things you're doing to try to help assure that is you're working to develop your own academic program in sports media. You're not the first person who's done this. Kyron Cartwright, in fact, the great basketball player who graduated last year, did the same thing, and a couple others right now in parallel with you. Tell us a little bit about that, how that works, how you go about putting that together academically.
Yeah, so that's definitely another thing. When I knew I walked on campus, I said, this is another thing I know I can do, and that's why PC was very attractive as well, if I didn't want to go, the sports media route. So that's what my major title is going to be, sports media. And I had no idea what to do at first. And then I looked at a couple of older proposals, such as Kyron's, and I saw, Professor or Father Gumbert in the theater department, since there's a film minor here, and I actually talked to Kelly Griffin. She's the class of 2014 as well. She's been a nice mentor as well. I've asked her a couple of questions, because she was a film minor here. I think she was humanities major, film minor, and obviously she's with the Cleveland Cavaliers now. So that's something I learned from her and Father Gumbert, and then the English department I picked Professor Scanlon. And the cool thing about him is, I'm a baseball fan. He was telling me his dad was part of the Baseball Writers Association. Obviously, they get the Hall of Fame vote, so that's pretty neat in a way to learn that. So, there are two guys that are definitely on board and wanted to help and showed a lot of interest too. And even it all started with Peter Palumbo in the dean's office as well. He does since I became an undeclared major to work on this major for sports media. He was in my corner as well. He's a big sports fan, so he was definitely for it. So I have to say, even though we don't have a major, there's people who are interested in sports, and they're going to bat for you anytime you want.
So it starts with the core curriculum that every student takes. That includes development of Western civilization. So you get that broad-based academic program that is trademark of Providence College, and you layer on top of that then some specific coursework. You talk about English, theater, film. You can see how this all comes together to form something that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it's definitely a process for sure, because I started working on it a little bit towards the end of last year, and so I had to plan out all my 4 years of curriculum, and the thing is, it's a little hard too, because classes such as sports marketing and there's a sports literature class. They're not offered every semester, so they're offered once in every blue moon. So you got to try to go on Cyberfry or try to figure out when they were offered, when would they be offered again. You got to contact people. So it's a process for sure, just trying to figure out, because also once you kind of mold it and make it your own way, it's harder to change. So you have to be really certain that that class is going to be offered, or if it's not, you can pick up another class and throw it in there, and your whole process will be okay. And that's exactly right. I've made it. You have to check off all the core classes as well. The philosophies, the theologies, the Civ. And that's another cool thing right now, is that we have the sports Civ colloquium, which I'm currently in, which is, I think, is about close to a sports class you can get, and it's really awesome too. I'm looking at this syllabus, before I'm going in there, and you can just tell. I think it's the best, one of the best classes I might take here. I'm gonna have a lot of fun with it. We bring in guys from the sports field itself. I saw John McDonald's coming, another PC baseball player and alum. So And that's definitely awesome.
So that colloquium is taught by Father John Vidmar and Sean Hawley from the class of 1984. So a great pairing there. And for listeners who maybe took Civ a long time ago and don't understand or don't recognize the concept of a colloquium, that's now the 4th semester of DWC, and students select one of those paths to the completion of DWC. So that's how that all works, and great to have Father Vidmar and Sean offering that colloquium for students interested in these subjects. What's your sense of the value of a liberal arts-based education as you look at what you'd like to do professionally down the road?
Well, that's honestly like I'm glad I came to liberal arts college as well, just because, in the sports world today, you don't want to be too focused. As a play-by-play guy, you can't just, have the voice and know how to do it. You got to do everything now. Like, a great example I saw my freshman year was when I went down to URI to help with the WDOM basketball broadcast, and Andy Katz was there. And, obviously he got, unfortunately, was laid off from ESPN, but now he's picked up a lot of gigs with Fox and NCAA.com, so that's what he was doing. He was covering the game for NCAA.com, and he was doing it all, in the press conference, and then he had interviewed, I believe, Fats Russell for URI after they won. They beat us, unfortunately. And so I just took notice to that.
A rare occasion.
A rare occasion, happens, last right? 9 meetings. So I saw that, and I took notice in that, and when I was creating my own major, I realized, end of this past summer, I realized, I want to be as well-versed as I can. And that's another thing that I can do with my major, is that I can touch upon like, English, like, the speaking, the oral wise, and then the film wise. And I may actually even taken a couple of photography classes as well that really tap into a lot of different aspects. And for me, when I graduate from PC, that looks, well-rounded and looks really good to an employer. And that's one thing I think I'll be thankful for when I graduate, which hopefully, it's going too fast. It's going way too fast. So hopefully it slows down a bit.
So who are some of your favorite sportscasters?
I mentioned, Bill Raftery, Gus Johnson, but I love a lot of CBS guys. I could say Jim Nantz. I always love listening to him. But a couple guys, Andrew Catalan, Spiro Ditas for CBS. Those are two other guys. But probably my favorite is going to be Iron Eagle. I'm a big Iron Eagle guy, and when someone says they don't like Iron Eagle, I get very disappointed because he shows a lot of emotion. Same thing with, we saw with Tony Romo. He's like a little kid, and I feel like Iron Eagle every time he gets behind a microphone. That's what he does. He's a little kid, and he loves what he's doing. So hopefully I can have as much passion as he can when I'm behind a mic. I'm
with you on that one, on all of those guys. In fact, the Tony Romo thing is interesting. So much attention, especially following the AFC Championship game, where he's predicting plays, which if you follow CBS, the NFL on CBS has been doing that all along, but people really focusing on it now. And there's this train of thought out there that to some extent he's kind of changing the way that these broadcasts are formed. And that's really interesting at this late stage of the development of this industry.
Yeah, no, it's actually one of my buddies and I were just talking about that, about how, some of the former players, obviously they're more color, but even some former players are becoming play-by-play guys now, which is definitely interesting. And, that's one thing. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll start doing a WDM broadcast now from doing color, start calling out plays like Tony Romo. And I think Jim and Tony are two of the best. You can tell they got the chemistry in the booth. Even Jim doesn't, when he builds in, when Tony predicts the play and it's actually right, the way he just flows it over, glosses it over is like, it's unbelievable. It's like watching, two guys go at it and just call the game. And it's fun to watch, even if it's, not the best game on TV, such as the Super Bowl. You can, on your opinion, whether it was a great game to watch. I enjoyed parts of it as well, and just listen to Tony and Jim go at it. It's awesome.
Couldn't agree with you more. The Tony Romo thing wouldn't work anywhere near as well without somebody like Jim Nantz sitting next to him. Jim Nantz allows it to happen, and that's why it's so effective. I got to do the old guy thing, though. You talked about former players becoming play-by-play announcers. This has been going on a long time. Frank Gifford, you ever heard that name?
Yeah,
way back
Gifford,
at the beginning of Monday Night Football, and further back in baseball, people like Phil Rizzuto and others. So, but yeah, it's an important. Having the former players in there is certainly an important part of the broadcast, and it brings flavor and credibility, right? Yep. So that makes a huge difference for sure. So what are some of the things you're looking for from the Friar men's basketball team and men's hockey team as we move into February?
Well, it's definitely it's time to push towards March. March is right around the corner, and the basketball team, we got a very young team, which I think is very important for a lot of people to remember. We're not, and I think a big importance as well is, I think Cooley said it best. And I go to the press conferences after the game when I cover for WDOM, and a couple things is you think about a lot of these backcourt guards in a way they didn't have the mentors such as a way, whereas when Bryce Kahn had a mentor of Vincent Council, and then Chris Dunn had the mentor of Bryce Cotton and Cobran with Dunn as well. Like, these guards were kind of, such as David Duke as a freshman and Micaiah Langford, they're kind of thrusted out there into no man's land. So I think it's very important as well, just patience and patience and patience. And it just feels like every time this year when PC needs to win a couple games in a way, they get it done. I was thinking the Boston College game and a couple other games later, in Big East slate play too. The PC needed the games, and obviously the last two, they're in the games at least. The last 4 minutes they've been in the games at Seton Hall and DePaul. So it just, I think at this point, some of the inexperience as well is playing a factor. But definitely having AJ Reeves is a big boost as well. I mean, he's a guy that can light it up on the scoreboard. Unfortunately for him, that's one thing too, is that when you come out firing like as he has been doing, it's going to be hard to top that. So, when he came out his first game, 29 points, 7 of 9 from 3 against Siena, and then let's say tomorrow against Georgetown, he'll go 4 of 8 from 3, and let's say it's 15 points. People, I think, will be disappointed in some ways. So, and Ed Cooley says it too. Once your name's on a scouting report, you're not gonna get those open shots anymore. So, but it's gonna be fun. I think I said it when my freshman year. I said, hopefully, I made a prediction to my friends that we'll make a Final Four. So hopefully my prediction will go out there. I mean, I would love to call Final Four. I mean, there's nothing better than that.
Well, that would certainly be fun. And there's a lot of excitement, of course, around both these teams, the hockey team, too, during the winters here at PC, and not to mention all the other teams that played, too, the women's basketball, women's hockey, and so on. It's exciting to follow the Friars, and we're fortunate to have WDOM to help us do that, and we appreciate the work that you and the other students there do to bring the games to us and to help build that excitement around Friar sports. This has been fun, Thomas. Thanks a lot for coming in and joining us today. We'll look forward to following your progress and seeing what happens next, and we'll all try to take your advice to make our way to the Cape this summer for a nice baseball game on a July evening. How's that sound?
No, definitely. Come on down. Orleans is plenty of room on the hill, and Orleans is actually hosting the All-Star game this year on the Cape, so you can come and stop by, and you can come say hello. We'll be on the third base line.
Sounds good. Get there early to get your chair down before Thomas's mother, though. That's the big thing to remember. So Thomas Zinzarella has been our guest on this episode of the Providence College podcast, and we thank you for joining us. Episodes are available in all of the usual places, including Spotify, and they're available on the college's YouTube channel as well. For producer Chris Judge, I'm Joe Carr. Until next time.